Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Explainer brought to you by Forge College. I am absolutely pumped to guide you through today's session. So, up until now, we've been swimming deep in the architectural theory of the Ethereum virtual machine and the Solana virtual machine. We've talked concepts, we've debated hypotheses, and we've meticulously built our measurement plans. But today is the day we finally put on our lab coats. We are officially transitioning from lead laboratory architects mapping out the theory right into the actual assembly phase. We are going to roll up our sleeves and populate the execution and state comparison data. Let's get our hands dirty and build something incredibly concrete. Okay, let's just quickly look at our schematic for today. First up, blueprint EVM versus SVM. Second, designing the table skeleton. Third, the normalization engine. Fourth, 5 steps to populate. Fifth, quality control checkpoint. And sixth, final review and next steps. This grounds us perfectly, picking up right exactly where we left off after our methodology and metrics lesson. All right, let's jump right into section 1, blueprint EVM versus SVM, bridging two distinct architectures.
Our overarching goal here is to take all this raw, messy data from both architectures and build a rock-solid, evidence-backed comparison. If you look on the left, you've got the EVM with its gas model, its variable opcodes, and that single account structure. Now look over on the right, the SVM operates on a strict compute budget, uses fixed sample units, and isolates its accounts. Honestly, comparing EVM gas directly to SVM compute units, it's literally like trying to translate apples into oranges while blindfolded. They just measure fundamentally different things in completely different ways, so we really need a clever system to compare them fairly.
That brings us to section 2, designing the table skeleton. This is our canonical markdown artifact. Every good machine and really every reliable scientific experiment starts with a rigid, completely predictable framework. Well, in our laboratory, that framework is the comparison table. It's a nicely structured CSV or markdown file that's going to hold all of our hard-earned findings. Take a look at these specific columns in our skeleton. We start right off with the dimension we are measuring. Then we've got columns for EVM evidence and SVM evidence. This is exactly where your definitive proof lives. Next up are the raw metrics for both chains. Then, and this is absolutely crucial, the normalized score for both. And finally, a nice spot for notes and citations. This precise structure, it's exactly what we need to map our dimensions from messy reality into clean, comparable data points. It is basically a thing of structural beauty.
Moving along to section 3, the normalization engine. Let's talk about Python's role in the laboratory.
So, you might be wondering, how do we actually populate those normalized scores we just talked about? Enter the star of the show, our normalized metrics.py script. Think of this little script as our own universal currency exchange. See, we're dealing with wildly heterogeneous metrics here. I mean, on one line, you might be looking at latency measured in milliseconds, right? And then on the very next line, you're looking at storage measured in bytes, or maybe even USD cost. You can't just slap those together into a final report and call it a day. This script takes those totally different raw metrics, or even categorical observations, and churns out a clean, standardized rubric score between 0 and 10. It converts the whole shebang into one unified language.
Just look at the flow of this engine. It's super elegant. You feed your raw metric right into the input. The engine then applies the rubric thresholds. And remember, those are the exact strict boundaries you meticulously set up back in lesson 2. And what pops out the other side? A perfectly normalized, capstone-ready integer from 0 to 10. Boom! It literally takes all the subjective guesswork completely out of the equation. Now for section 4, 5 steps to populate. Here's the actual assembly process.
All right, this is where the rubber meets the road. We take our theory, our blank table, and our fancy Python script, and we actually execute this experiment step by step. Here's the high-level view. First, we populate the CSV skeleton. Then, we capture the evidence. Third, we collect those raw metrics. Fourth, we run that awesome normalization engine. And finally, we do a really thorough review. That's the exact path from a completely empty file to a polished, peer-review-ready artifact. Let's break these down a bit more.
Zooming in on steps 1 and 2. First off, you create your comparison rows CSV file with those exact headers we looked at. You're going to want to match at least 5 architectural dimensions based on your outline. But listen, here is the absolute critical part for step 2, evidence capture. We are relying strictly, and I mean strictly, on solid primary protocol documentation. Think opcode gas tables or the actual Solana runtime docs. We also use non-authenticated, static RPC metadata. Let me be clear, we are absolutely not executing live, funded, state-changing transactions for this step. We are gathering static, mathematically verifiable proof.
Now move into step 3, your focus shifts to collecting the raw metrics using offline or simulated measurements. You're going to use deterministic, highly repeatable commands. Why? Because we're doing science here. Your measurements must be entirely reproducible by your peers. If a peer reviewer types in your exact command to check, say, average block execution capacity, they better see the exact same numbers you did. No ghost variables, no weird network-dependent flukes allowed.
And then we get to the grand finale of our assembly process, steps 4 and 5. You extend your Python script so it can actually read your raw CSV file. And honestly, there is a profound, nerdy satisfaction in hitting run on your terminal and just watching your script effortlessly parse the data, apply the complex logic, and spit out a brand new, pristine file called comparison_rows_normalized.csv. In step 5, you crack open that new file and verify it. You've got to ensure every single row has a non-empty citation and a totally valid integer score.
Almost there. Section 5. Quality Control Checkpoint. Automated and manual validation. So we have to make absolutely sure this data is flawless before it makes its way into your final report. We don't just guess that our data is good, we prove it. We break this down into 2 strict layers of inspection. The automated checks are simple little scripts you run, like, does the file have 1 header and at least 5 data rows? Are all the scores strictly integers between 0 and 10? If the parser throws even a tiny error, you fail the inspection. Full stop. Then comes the manual check. Are these metrics genuinely reproducible from a short description? Did you map categorical behaviors explicitly in your notes? This level of strictness ensures your foundation is completely rock solid. And speaking of manual checks, I really have to emphasize this rule. Secondary blog posts? In this laboratory? Never. We have a very strict door policy here. Some random person's Medium article from 3 years ago claiming Solana is fast? Yeah, that is completely banned from our citations. We want primary sources only. The Ethereum Yellow Paper, the official Solana runtime docs, direct opcode schedules. If it's not primary verifiable evidence, it simply does not exist in our comparison table.
Finally, Section 6, Final Review and Next Steps, Preparing for Peer Review. All right, so you've passed quality control. Amazing. Now you can package up that capstone folder, make sure everything is neatly version controlled, and tie it off with a nice README bow. As you do that, I want to leave you with this absolute core principle, directly from our source material. Separate measurement from interpretation. This is exactly why we structured those table columns the way we did. Keep the raw facts, the raw milliseconds, the raw gas costs, completely separate from your 1 to 10 interpreted scores. This means your peers can look at your work, reproduce your raw data, and hey, if they disagree with your score, they can debate your rubric logic without having to remeasure all those raw facts all over again. It makes your work bulletproof.
You have now successfully translated abstract architecture into concrete evidence. You've built a static, beautifully normalized framework comparing EVM and SVM execution and state. But here is the provocative question I want to leave you with today. How will these 2 massive architectures actually hold up when we throw real, dynamic runtime performance constraints at them? I mean, things are about to get really stressful for these networks. Well, that is exactly what we are going to be testing in our very next lesson. Remember, you can always dive deeper into this module and continue your entire Web3 architecture journey by visiting forge.college. Keep experimenting, keep building, and I will see you in the next explainer.